Today's tutorial is all about sculpting on our sleeves. We're going to be using Aves Apoxie Sculpt, and we're going to sculpt on our duck sleeve. We're going to make this super cute life preserver. Epoxy Sculpt is a two-part self-curing clay. It hardens like a rock, is extremely durable, and very easy to use. It sticks to almost any surface except for silicone. The manufacturer does recommend that you wear gloves while you mix, and then just make sure to keep your part A and B separate from each other until you are ready to mix them. So here I am just getting equal parts of part A and part B, and I'm just going to eyeball it. Once I have two equal parts of A and B, then I'm just going to mix them together and knead them around for a few minutes until everything is well mixed. Once we're done mixing, then we can take our gloves off. And then we're going to take our Epoxy Sculpt and roll it into a nice big snake for our life preserver. We'll take our duck sleeve and we'll put our Epoxy Sculpt right onto our sleeve and just line everything up right where we want it. And then use a little bit of gentle, even pressure to get it to stick a little bit on the sleeve. The Epoxy Sculpt is a little bit sticky, so you don't need too much pressure to get it to stick. Since the life preserver doesn't go all the way around the duck, we want it to blend in on this side, so we just kind of pinch and make like a triangle shape. And we use some water to blend any kind of cracks and make it smooth. And we do the same to the other side, and you can use lots of water to get your Epoxy Sculpt to be smooth and blend. Make sure you're always checking for evenness. Now mine was a little bit too long on one side, so I'm taking a blade and I'm just kind of cutting the end off, and then I'm going back in with my water and just re-blending the side again. And you can do that as many times as you need to. Now, Epoxy Sculpt does have a work time limit, so be mindful of that. It's about an hour and a half to 2 hours before it becomes too hard to work with, so you want to make sure that you are mindful of your work time. Another tip about Epoxy Sculpt is that you can work in layers, so you could sculpt a base layer and then come back after it's cured and sculpt more on top of that. Alright, this guy is ready to cure. I'm just going to set him on my table and leave him overnight. This is the next day. He is dry and cured. It is rock hard. The great thing about Epoxy Sculpt is you can use spray paint. So I am going to paint the life preserver with some spray paint. And now I'm going to come in and paint my duck sleeve. I am using Folk Art brand in the color Yellow Light. My plan is to also glitter this duck, so it's only going to need one coat of this particular yellow. If you weren't going to glitter it, then I would suggest doing 2 coats. Other brands you might need more than 2 coats, but this one you only need 1. For the beak, I am again using Folk Art. If you can't tell, it is my favorite brand of paint. I highly recommend it, and it is in the color Pumpkin. And for the eyes, I just used a basic black, again, in the Folk Art brand. Okay, here is what I consider the hardest part. We are going to paint the red stripes in the Life Preserver. I'm using the color Lipstick Red, and my advice to you is just go for it, and then you can clean it up later. You could use painter's tape to tape off certain sections to make a clean line. I just went for it, and then I cleaned it up later. My other tip is to keep the brush stationary and move the duck. That seemed to work really well for me versus moving the brush. I had more trouble when I would move the brush. Also, don't worry about getting too close to the duck when we're painting these. This is just laying down the base. We're going to need to do more coats, and then we're going to go in with a much smaller brush and get really close to the duck. Take your time. Remember that my video is sped up to like 2.5 times speed so that this video doesn't end up being extremely long, and make sure that everything is lined up nicely. And if you have to, start over and respray paint those lines or go over it with white again. Here is where we go in with a fine brush so we can get everything nice and close to the duck and clean everything up. And then we're going to do about 3 coats of the red so that the red is nice and vibrant. I'm going to dot my eyes on my duck. I just use the end of my paintbrush and a little bit of white, and I just lay a little dot on my eyes. And now we're ready to glitter. For this tutorial, I'm using the thick glitter glue from the Aves Apoxie. And I am just going in with my brush, and I'm going to glitter the bottom half of my duck first. For the yellow glitter, I am using Magic School Bus from the Glitter Guy. I'm going to let the bottom half of my duck dry, and then I'm going to put my football holder in and glitter the top half. You could glitter the entire duck all at once. Just for this particular video, I happen to choose to do it this way. For the tumbler part of the tutorial, I'm using Cotton Candy Magic from the Glitter Guy. I completely forgot to film, but I am again using the thick glitter glue from the Aves Apoxie, and I just put it on the whole tumbler except for the bottom part, and I'm going to ombre that with Blue Sky. And then since the bottom of the tumbler is sticking out of the duck, I painted that. And then I'm going to go back in with our Magic School Bus glitter, and I am going to make that yellow so then the bottom of the duck and tumbler are all the same color. Now let's get our tumbler into our sleeve. So I am going in with a few mLs of epoxy, and I'm just going to get it all over our tumbler. I'm not going to put any on the bottom, and you'll see why in a little bit, but I am just getting the tumbler well coated with a thin coat of epoxy all the way around. Now I take my sleeve and I simply slide my tumbler into my sleeve, and I have it resting on a silicone mat, and I am just going to leave it there to cure, and everything is attached and nice and secure, and I have a nice flat bottom. And then we're going to go in and put it on the turner, and we're going to epoxy everything together. I like to use a craft brush to epoxy all of my 3D tumblers. It helps so that epoxy doesn't pool in the 3D elements. It doesn't drown out your 3D designs. Now, because we added some weight to the front, I did add a counterweight to the opposite side of my turner arm. I just taped some weight to the other side, and I did this so that when it spins, there's no jumps or skips when the tumbler is turning. And now I'm just going to go in and epoxy the entire tumbler and sleeve. And there we have our cute little duck with a life preserver using Epoxy Sculpt. I hope these tips help you, and I can't wait to see yours. Be sure to join our Facebook group and follow us on social media.